What's up, Laker fans? Welcome to the Laker Film Room Podcast. I'm Pete, joined by Darius, and the Lakers moved to 3-0 with a sweep over the weekend of a couple home games. First against the Phoenix Suns with a big comeback. They were down 22 points, rallied all the way back very quickly in the late second quarter and early third, and just kept pushing ahead to a pretty convincing victory despite the early deficit. And then on Saturday, very, very special day, did not do a playback or anything, but got to check off a bucket list item for myself. And Darius and I got to go to a game. We went to the game on Saturday, got to see LeBron go absolutely crazy. We were where we were sitting was behind the basket, on the basket the Lakers were shooting on when LeBron went crazy. So every time he drove to the basket or every time he pulled up for three, it was coming right at us. And so, D, we had to get some positive mojo in the crowd to break the King streak. Got to see our guy Mike at halftime, and it was just a beautiful night in LA. So most of the time when we talk about the weekend's games or things like that, we do it very much from an analyst perspective and all that, and we'll get to all that all later. But D, talk to me about our night together and your night in LA.
So first of all, let me say, I thought the bucket list item was going to be seeing Anthony Davis beat Sabonis, since that seemed to be such a huge talking point after the game with everyone. So great night. Even before that, it's been a long time since I've been to Staples. And I don't come to LA very often in general. The last time I was actually in LA, I was talking to Pete about this, was when my dad was really sick. My dad has since passed away. And so it was just a long time ago that I had been in LA. And so went to Staples. Sorry, I'm still calling it Staples. Went to Staples. Took pictures of all the statues. I saw all the Kobe statues. And I was just struck, Pete, by what the environment was like outside the arena, Dodgers World Series game. And so I've been tweeting immaculate vibes about the Lakers and everything they've been doing with JJ Redick and the smalls versus the big stuff that he's been doing, that I think is just great to create this sense of competition and camaraderie with all of the dudes. But it was immaculate vibes in downtown Los Angeles, man. There were a ton of people. We're eating Mexican food. I had some carnitas. We were listening to the restaurant explode every single time the Dodgers got a hit or scored a run. And then we mosey on down to the arena. We sit in our seats, which are pretty good seats. I was thinking we were going to be up in the 300s. That's not where we were. We were watching right behind the basket, basically, and watched the Lakers play a really, I thought for the most part, a professional game. The way they were getting beat was all on transition and mistake stuff, but everything the team was doing was oh, this is working for them if they could just stop shooting themselves in the foot. And lo and behold, when Fox hit those 2 threes to close the third quarter, I'm going to break this out right here, Pete, because you gave me some serious side eye when I said this to you. But Fox hit those threes, and he was feeling himself something great. He was staring at his left hand, and he was making a big show of it. And we were sitting in a section where there were Kings fans kind of close to us. Mm-hmm. They were starting to feel themselves a little bit. And there's Fox, and he's staring at his left hand, and he's making a show, and he's staring at it and then taking it away and then staring at it again. And I told you, Pete, I said, because he just did that dumb shit of staring at his hand, they're going to lose for that. And you looked at me is this MF for serious right now? To see a LeBron stretch like we got to see in person. I know you've been to a bunch of Laker games. I've been to a bunch of Laker games. But seeing that in that arena with sort of the feeling of that's around the team right now, it was a special moment. It's something I'm never going to forget. And the fact that you and me were sitting there high-fiving every single time a big play happened, it was just dope. It was a great, great night. And Braun and then AD and Austin, there was so many good things that happened. So just a fantastic, fantastic night.
Heck yeah, man. Just from the whole night, from going out to eat and to the smell of the hot dog vendors and just the crackle in the air from the din of people in LA Live. Just a great night. If you ever get a chance to go see a Laker game, by all means seize on it. And one of the many things I love about basketball is how different it looks from the different perspectives that you're sitting at. And at our particular view, it's not the best for digesting the whole game and the action, right? You're not on the side, you're behind a basket. And so just to break down sort of the basketball a little bit, the thing I thought we had the best view of was sort of the under the basket post play. And I was so struck. I had known this from watching tape, but from seeing it at that angle was the utility of Rui relative to last season defensively. He spent so much of his time on Sabonis, and like Sabonis got some wins against him, but like Rui at the three as a power player was so evident in this game on both ends of the floor, right? Because on one end, during the first half, we see Rui as that defensively, and that's when we see a lot of the banging with Sabonis and all that. And this allows AD to be deployed a little more out onto the perimeter defensively. And as you were saying, in that first half, they were all scoring off our mistakes. It was either actual turnovers or shooting turnovers, right? Like the Max drive to nowhere. Rui had a couple of those as well. And just sort of these like, hey, that's a bad shot. And now they're running out on us. And it's become very obvious that everybody's game plan against us is to do that. Now, Sacramento's going to do that. That's just how they play. But seeing our half court defense, I was like, look at us. We're pretty organized and we got some tools to work with. And I just really loved that deployment of Rui. So I'm curious, just in general, watching a basketball game from that perspective, behind the basket, it's a very different view. What did you take away from that?
I took away the same exact things that you took away, which was the level of compete by players defensively in and around the painted area. And it's a thing that you actually don't get a great sense of watching from TV unless it's like a very particular angle that you're getting from the camera. I've said this before in the pod, but a favorite highlight video I have is this video of like Kareem in the latter stages of his career just shooting skyhooks. But it's not just him just shooting the skyhook. It's him battling for post position against all of these different dudes and then trying to basically fight down low in order to get to 8 feet away or 10 feet away where he's going to shoot this beautiful shot. And it's a slog. And there's no like commentary. It's like all clips from almost like melts, like the kind of stuff that you would get when you worked for the team. So it's like sneakers squeaking and you can really feel the physicality. And so the stuff with Rui really sort of like chesting up and putting his forearm in there and really like trying to stand him up tall to keep him from getting down low, and then seeing like even like how good and strong Sabonis is. There's like an appreciation you get for like what type of player he is as well offensively. And then seeing on the flip side of things, like how in the other direction, you see it from a much further view out, how later in the game, we were watching the Lakers give up switch after switch after switch with D'Lo getting switched on to DeMar DeRozan, and how the Kings were trying to manipulate that and how much D'Lo was or was not battling DeRozan for the same space that like Rui was trying to battle Sabonis for. And it's this interesting perspective where, just like you said, you don't get all of the nuance, but the stuff in the trenches, you get so much more appreciation for what that looks like in that environment. Watching these dudes sort of slug it out down there.
The other thing that stood out was how different the game was relative to which lineup we had in. And so I was geeking out on one unit in particular that I want to talk on at the other end of this break. So, D, there's that flamethrower group to start the second quarter and fourth quarter that was a plus 31 in about 9 minutes. You know how badly you got to kick another team's ass to be plus 31 in like 9 minutes of action? Now, that means the rest of the game, we were getting our butts kicked for like the other 39, 40 minutes nearly. The Lakers were minus 26, minus 27 or so. But that unit, man, we've really got something with that group of D'Lo, Dalton, Rui, LeBron, and Jackson. And really effective on both ends of the floor. Their numbers are absolutely otherworldly right now in large part because of that game. But the game flipped, I thought, several times relative to what lineup was in. And that was the group. Remember, that was the thing I was saying going into that fourth quarter is like, let's see if they can do it again. Because that group was a plus 11 in their first run, or a plus 13, I think, in their first minutes on the floor. And again, only like 4 minutes of action in that first half, and really pushed the game ahead to about a 14-point advantage that they let go of a lot of that rope toward the end of the second quarter. But bro, that's the unit that won us that game.
No, it totally was. The Lakers were down 7 going into the fourth, like I mentioned earlier, and literally in the blink of an eye, they were up 7. And you're like, they just not only erased that 7-point lead, they're now up 7 points. And it ended up being, so that's a 14-0 run, boom, like in the blink of an eye. It ended up being a 21-0 run. That group could score. So we're going to dive into that in a second. But the idea of them, and I'm so happy that JJ mentioned this, because he's just like, I'm going to praise LeBron in a second, because LeBron went on like a personal 15-0 run or something like that. But that whole thing got started with Dalton. From the second they drafted him, JJ was already saying like, yeah, man, it's like I had to call Dalton and like basically tell him I'm already drawing up plays for you. And it's like the day that he got drafted. But you could tell he's like, oh no, this dude can shoot every variety of 3-point shot. I could draw up all kinds of crazy mastermind X's and O's schemes, run him all over the court. And he's going to basically be able to just turn his hips and pivot and then just step into a jump shot. Like, he's got all the footwork, Pete. And so the types of threes that he's able to hit are like, oh, you've got that in your bag. And I think that sort of sets up the other spacing stuff. And then you combine that with Hayes and Hayes' rolling ability, and then LeBron. And so when LeBron is then just going to say, like, I'm just going to make everything and then threaten the rim too, it's a crazy potent offensive group.
After the game, Mike asked D'Lo, why is that group so effective on offense? And he gave an interesting answer.
And what's been working with that group to start, I think, the second quarter and the fourth quarter? Dalton out there, Jackson, you, LeBron, like what that you guys have, I think, been in the plus for pretty much in all 3 games.
I mean, it's just a different dynamic. I think Jackson kind of makes it happen. You know, he's setting screens and rolling and being that loud threat to where teams have to pull in, and you have spacing on the backside and pulling over. It's tough cover.
So that roll gravity from Jackson that you were talking about is super key. And I love the composition of that group in that it's basically LeBron with a co-pilot in terms of organizing offense. And he was actually annoyed with D'Lo quite a bit throughout the night, as were we. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But he was annoyed with him from a, this is the play we're running and you're in the wrong spot type of perspective. But when they're really going, they can run 3-man action, and then they've got young athletes that are finishers specifically around them. And so you've been in love with that Rui, LeBron, Jackson combo. I would argue Dalton adds a 4th guy to that big athlete, especially when he's at the 2 there. And so you give LeBron a wolf pack behind him, and he's the one deciding where the ball's going to go to, while being totally capable of himself going freaking crazy. Like, I don't know, man. I think we got something there.
One of the things I had mentioned to you during the game about Dalton that I super appreciated is that he is like a dog in transition, and he will get after it, and he can get big eyes. He's like, oh, I'm inside the 3-point line, and you have not stepped up in a sufficient manner to stop me from taking one big dribble and then getting all of the way to the basket. And that sort of, oh, we've got real finishers, like 3-level finishers with Rui and Dalton. And then the way that Hayes runs the floor and can basically dunk from the foul line. Really, like, he takes one big step inside the 3-point line, and he's not Giannis by any means, but that dude puts that one foot in the ground, and he got a trampoline in his shoes. And so all of that combines to really put the defense in a precarious situation, like a lot. And when you talk about D'Lo, yeah, we had a lot of frustrations with him, and I think we'll get to that basically now. But the thing that D'Lo can really do with this group is he can pass. So he is a very good passer to Dalton. He has great lob chemistry with Hayes, and him and LeBron, they have similar processing speed and connectivity as passers. And so the play where, and this was coming right at us, the play where D'Lo was like pointing at LeBron, like, hey, you come here, like we're going to run a dribble exchange. And then that was all a setup for him to cut back door. And D'Lo threaded that bounce pass to LeBron where he got the reverse layup. And it's just like, those are the sorts of plays that D'Lo can make from a thinking standpoint that are super helpful to grease the wheels for that team to find a variety of ways to score.
And LeBron is the key to finding that variety of ways to score. So if there are times where, because like the dominant scorer that LeBron has turned into has become very revolved around his jump shot. And this is sort of the final form of the great 6'6" to 6'8" guys throughout NBA history, the MJs, Kobe's, LeBron, right? That type has sort of a final era of their career where in previous eras, it's been the fadeaway jumper that sort of, you were talking about Kareem getting older and pretty much just shooting skyhooks. It's super difficult to block that shot. So just the mastery of move, counter move, right? I'm going to take my skyhook. If you really, really overplay it, I'm going to drop step for a layup, right? But you only need 2 moves. Kobe used to talk about this. Everybody's trying to do all these, 8 different crossovers and things like that. It's like, no, you need a great move and then you need a counter move to it. And so with LeBron, him being able to be freed up, like he had within that personal run, a great post seal on De'Aaron Fox. And that's where the reason why we beat teams like Phoenix or Sacramento and why it's super difficult for them when we start putting our foot on the gas, LeBron in particular, for them to stop it is they're just small. And I don't love the DeRozan signing for them, in part because of this. And I think the clinching play of the game was Rui's baseline dunk where DeRozan got lost, right? But LeBron got a post seal on De'Aaron Fox off of a cross screen. It was just good stuff. But none of the other 3 players on the floor can really facilitate that action without D'Lo sort of being the ball handler that starts it. Rui actually made that post-entry pass. His post-entries can be an adventure, and we saw that throughout this game and in the previous one as well. But like D'Lo frees up LeBron to operate off of the ball, and sometimes that's how LeBron, the scorer, will be most effective going forward, I think.
100%. And speaking of Rui, the patience he showed when delivering that pass, because he could have stepped into a jumper, but instead he waited, and maybe it was some comments that LeBron had given him earlier during the game.
Swing that MF needs to be on a shirt, because between Rui and Dalton, if they swing that MF, like there are dunks and wide open threes waiting for them. It's not a like I want them to be less aggressive, but that swing that MF mentality, man, that will get you those buckets.
It definitely will. And so Rui took an extra beat. He could have dribbled into what would have been a wide open mid-range 2, but instead he sort of hesitated. He saw LeBron, he opened up, and then he fired a good pass in there. And then I think, was that the play where LeBron pump faked and then and then drew the N1?
Yeah, it was Fox and Herter around him, and LeBron's like, shot fake first. You're getting old.
Totally. Well, also too, it's just like he's like, oh, I could probably get an N1 here. These small dudes are not going to like stop me from scoring here. All of that was beautiful. But let's go to break here, Pete, because one of the things that I was wondering about was, okay, LeBron just put out all this energy in order to turn this game around, but there's like 9 minutes left in the game. And I was wondering how those last 9 minutes were going to go. And the Kings didn't quit. And I'd love to talk about that part a little bit more when we come back. The Kings are going to be a team that continues to make runs, particularly against the Lakers, because I think even if they're not playing all of their best players, they have a smart game plan against the Lakers, which is like, we're going to be physical as hell and we're going to use our speed and our quickness. They do a great job of pressuring the ball. They do a great job of being physical at the point of attack. They're like, you can't call every foul or whatever, and we're going to get deflections, and we're just going to play hard. And I thought that the game started to turn when the Lakers started to give up a bunch of switches defensively, particularly with D'Lo. And I was wondering if they were going to stick with him. And D'Lo had a really interesting night, man. Like, I feel like every 3-pointer he hit was like a huge shot. We just talked about his prowess as a passer and how that helped sort of facilitate those big scoring bursts of that great offensive lineup. But on the other side, he's still the guy with the target on his back defensively. And I thought Sacramento was really looking to him as the red carpet for like, here's where our offense is going to go. It's going to go right at D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, and that's sort of, I think, their theory of how they can beat teams is someone's got to guard Fox, someone's got to guard Malik, someone's got to guard DeRozan. And if you've got one weak defender in the three or one mismatched defender, we're going to find them. Some nights it's going to be Fox, some nights it's going to be DeRozan. And just on paper, do I expect D'Lo to be able to guard DeRozan? Absolutely not. And yeah, there's just an over-the-top factor that as much as that one group really beat the crap out of everyone, I thought they lost by 27 or whatever it was in the other 40 minutes because it showed some of the roster weakness in terms of athleticism at that position. Although after that game, because the lineups felt so different, that was, again, one thing where it was like when Max checked in, who's struggling like hell, but like the max minutes felt a certain way in the arena. You know what I mean? And again, that puts it in a way where it's like, it's your fault, right? But as soon as the starters checked out, we struggled on offense right away. We have an offensive problem without LeBron on the floor. The way that run ended, it was 21-0 run. It could have been more. It probably should have been more because Sacramento was just totally discombobulated. LeBron got a rebound, but he was freaking gassed.
Yep.
With how much effort he was exerting, and like, worth it. That run won the game, but he was super tired, and he threw this bad cross-court pass and he was trying to get Dalton in transition, got pick sixed. They hit a pull-up three that was wide open, and then immediate timeout. LeBron called it because he was freaking tired, and then he's out of the game right after, right? And that's not Redick going like icing his shooter or the guy who's like killing it right now. That's LeBron going like, I just gave a lot to go on the run that we just went on. But because the Lakers don't have an offensive identity in the AD minutes, and I think that the lineups although that in that fourth it was a little bit better, but I think a lot of that game, a lot of their points was a result of our bad offense. And it was countering that. So even in those stretches, it was basically that plus we ran out of guys to guard them, and we end up with D'Lo on DeRozan was sort of the story of that fourth quarter to me. How about you?
No, that's exactly right. And I did think the Lakers started to have a little bit more of an identity offensively with AD and Austin playing like two-man game a little bit more. But the Kings are a tricky team because they can pressure Austin. It's going to be hard for the Lakers to score. It's like it's still the same formula, right? Where if it's just Austin and AD, that's not enough ball handling. And even if it's Austin and Gabe and AD, it can still be tricky in that way because the Lakers don't want to give the ball to AD to bring the ball up like that. He's not Jokic in that way. They want to play through AD a bunch more, but they still want their guards to be the initiators. And I thought Fox and Monk and Murray, those guys were really pressing up and saying, like, You're going to have to beat us. Like, we're better athletes than you anyway. And so we're going to at least leverage whatever our athleticism is to pressure the ball. And so it really did take the Lakers sort of settling in and manufacturing points. It's like AD going to the foul line or a bucket here or Austin getting a layup. And they were matching things a little bit. But I honestly thought D'Lo played well on offense. I thought that his level of compete was not there defensively. He even had that one play where
that one transition play.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. They just threw the ball like right over his head. And JJ called a timeout right after that. And I think I said to you, I said, look how far JJ walked away from everyone.
He walked to the whole opposite sideline to cool off.
He was so mad. And
rightfully so.
Again, these are the things I super appreciate about JJ. And it happens in post-game media too, where someone says something that sort of triggers him and he can't let it go in that moment about like the thing that they said that reminded him of something that happened in the game that upset him. And so he was talking about something with AD and then it triggered in his mind, no, this is something that really bothered me. And he just totally changed subjects from
That's
talking
exactly
about AD.
how a head coach should be. That's exactly like it should irritate him. Yeah.
So he can't let go of it. And I love it. And so he walked and walked and walked. I swear he would have walked to the locker room. Like if they would have let him, like if he had a 5-minute timeout or something, he would have just been like,
no, that's bullshit.
I need more time.
That's bullshit. I get though, and needing to calm down and all of that, but that's part of the like, I find myself just my first blink instincts of the real games is I don't want to trade D'Lo, but I don't want to rely on him.
Yep.
You know, if we could put D'Lo into that position, like I'd love to have him around. And there's a reason we go on our bonkers runs when he's on the court. We'll talk about this more. To me, there's kind of a lineup flip that I think would help two different parts of the game, both the starters and the next unit. Like Dalton at the 2, starting for D'Lo. You know how the whole idea of our front court is 3 power guys and again the run out of guys type of thing? Bro, Dalton at the 2, like I just released a little compilation. I've been watching his defensive tape, right? Just all the relevant clips. Weak side is a little bit harder to do, but a lot of situations. How good are his closeouts? How does he compete? He's been switched on to stars. We've been switching a lot. That means the offense gets to choose who you want to go up against. Hey, give me the rookie whose scouting report is you can't defend. And he's got a level of athleticism and give a crap that is super helpful. And then offensively, if you got Rui in one corner, you got Dalton in the other, you got on those corner crashes, that like you got to put your 2 on Dalton. I don't know. Like this is a conversation down the line. We're 3-0. I get all of that, but there's a certain amount with the starters. The starters and that group, they need another guy who likes to run and that can still space the floor, right? But has some athletic size. We've been talking about these athletic 2s, right? I think Dalton is naturally a 3. But if you bring D'Lo into the game for LeBron at that 7-minute mark when he's been going out or whenever it is, I think you got D'Lo and Austin in the backcourt with AD at the 5, and then Rui just slides up and Dalton slides up. And then Dalton goes out fairly soon thereafter because I don't think you want to touch that unit to start the second quarter, right? So I want Dalton in that.
Yeah.
But to me, that as soon as LeBron goes out of the game, we don't know how to score in the half court. And then we give up transition opportunities to smaller athletes, Gabe, right? Austin. These are guys that you get them in open space, just superior athletes are going to win those battles. So I think D'Lo would be very helpful with those groups. And I know there's politics and all that, but just, I don't know. I feel like there's something there.
No, I think that if in a vacuum, those lineups make a bunch of sense. I think this is where also like you're coaching the people. Are you going to get everything you can out of D'Lo with a dramatic shift?
Look, what we need out of D'Lo is to not give that, right? Because what he's doing now, that play in transition is you need that. You 100%. Need that. And that's acknowledging like the huge shots that he hits, the way he facilitates and helps pass. Like D'Lo is super helpful for this team. But like, bro, we're trying to win the game. And he had to get subbed out like 90 seconds. And like Redick did not want to do it.
But he had to do it, and he made the right choice, really. This is where, in getting back to Redick a little bit, it's why I've been pleased with a lot of what he's done. I do think that there are still lineup stuff to tweak, but it's hard to argue too much when at the end of the game, you're up on the scoreboard and the final buzzer sounds, right? That said, I do believe that in the big picture, there are more lineups stuff to explore. Some of that, though, is going to happen when like Vando's back. And what happens? What's proving to be true is that whether or not a dramatic shift in like the lineup to the point where like D'Lo's coming off the bench in favor of Dalton happens or not, Dalton needs to play and he needs to have a consistent role. We talked about what D'Lo's importance is for these different parts of the game. Dalton's proving important as well. He is a high quality shooter and the defense is reacting to him when he's coming off of screens. And is his trigger a little quick sometimes? Does he take a couple of bad shots a game? Sure. But I don't want to really coach that out of him. What I want for him is to learn and experience, like, what is there something more there if I'm just a little bit more patient? But look, man, when you got a cannon, you're going to trust the cannon. And that's what Dalton's got, man. Like, he knows what caliber of shooter he is, and he lets it fly.
But what I'm saying is there is a land of milk and honey waiting for Dalton on the other side of a shot fake.
Sure.
Guys are going at him, closing at him so hard that it's like, Steph, perfect example, talking about having a cannon. How many of Steph's shots end up being wide ass open because somebody was like, oh my God, I've got to get out there to the shooter. And Steph used that against him. And so I guess what I've been trying to communicate is it's irritating on sometimes, but once he learns that, which I don't think is going to take super long, like in thinking about him in this whole, like, how the hell did we end up with this kid? Right. Like that's been my mood.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of the underlying feeling that motivates all of these ramblings and rants about him. Right. But one of the things I've been thinking about is this is the first time that he's played with really high-end players. And so I think he's got this sort of feeling of like, I have to do this all myself. That is a great thing to have. Like, I totally get what you're saying. I'm not trying to discourage, like, I want super high usage out of him, frankly, just early on. But what I'm saying is that he's got guys running at him in a way that if he learns that, man, he's going to start killing guys.
Yeah, and this is why, like, when we were talking at the game and you were sort of saying that him and Rui have some very similar tendencies, like, in this way, I think that that's totally true, and I can see it. One of the reasons why I agree with you on D'Lo to a certain extent is just like, I'd love to have him around but not have to rely on him is, like, I believe that. I also believe that, like, a lower usage version of D'Lo helps slot all of these other guys into roles where they can, like, be at their most aggressive self. But it's just like, I was saying this to you offline earlier, D'Lo's skill set is, like, fairly unique in that he is a thinker. He plays with pretty good to great feel. He's got great shot making ability. So he's a very good shooter, but also like great shot making ability. And he's got all the passes. And it's hard to find a guy like that who can shoot the ball, even if he's not as great of a shot maker as D'Lo, to find a shooter who has all the passes, but then is also going to like compete defensively. That dude's almost a unicorn.
I almost see him as, the 2020 team had a certain personality to it, but Rondo was LeBron's other ball handler on that team. And so what you're saying, if I'm understanding you right, is like D'Lo in that passer facilitator, I'm going to help, facilitate the success of others rather than my own scoring type of role. That was very much what Rondo did, right? And then if the ball got swung to him and he was wide open, he'd knock that down. Honestly, that's my biggest concern with D'Lo offensively is like, can you knock down open shots when the game is super intense?
Yeah. And that's fair because he hasn't really done it like in the playoffs to the level that you would want him to considering his offensive talent. And that's the tricky thing with D'Lo. It's just like, I support D'Lo a fair amount until I get so frustrated with him. And I'm just like, this MFer, man, you're so much better than this. And this is why he's such a tricky player to evaluate. I will say this, though. Sacramento was like really the first game where I was just like, man, I wish he was doing his work earlier on defense. I wish he was battling a little bit more. Because honestly, in the first 2 games, I think that he's actually done pretty good defensively in that he's done his job. He's battled pretty hard. But against Sacramento, it's just like, you can't give up this baseline drive to Kevin Huerter. You can't just let DeRozan back you all the way down the way that he is. You have to fight him more for some of these spots on the court. And then you give up a play like the one where they got the transition basket for Monk. And you're just like, no, absolutely not. You cannot be this right now defensively, not when the game is starting to turn back the other direction.
That's why I'm saying, though, like, Dalton battles, he's got athletic size. Like, D'Lo's got athletic limitations. And I think there's this completely correct thought that Austin and D'Lo together have some concerns going into the higher level.
There's a real ceiling to that.
Like, and so what I'm saying is if you separate them within the same team, our unit with AD can't score. These would be blowouts. If those minutes, I guess I'm trying to communicate a certain level of excitement where the team's 3-0, they controlled a pair of games where they both went on huge runs against Phoenix and Sacramento, and we got to wrap up. We got Phoenix again tonight. Lakers are going to have to really push the pace. That LeBron really starting to run and attack is going to be everything, because Phoenix, we saw what they looked like when they kicked our ass, and they're certainly capable of doing that to us at home. But if the Lakers play with physicality and force, there are a lot of opportunities available. And so very curious how that goes. This was a fun chat, man. It was a great night in LA with you, and we will be back tomorrow to discuss how the game went. But until then, you've been listening to the Laker Film Room Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.
James has got it in low to McHale. McHale wants to turn. He's double team. Just pass out in front. Broken up by Worthy. Tip to Magic. Worthy dives on his belly. Magic scores.
There's Magic got it. Magic fires. It's good. The Lakers win the game. The Lakers win the game. Rebound of Lonnie. 3 seconds left. Van Exel to win it. It's on the way. Good.
Kobe Bryant, 48 points, 16 rebounds.
Shot with his 8th block shot that ties an NBA Finals record.
A lot of Laker fans sticking around for this.
You're seeing something that's very rare indeed. A Laker to get MVP chance
in Boston. Of all places.
Are you kidding me?
Kobe, hard to believe.
Are you kidding me? Unreal. Are you kidding me?
Lakers looking to push. Bryant spinning in the lane. Back for Gasol. Pretty pass. And it's back to a 3-point game.
Kobe Bryant picked up by Bell.
There's the move.
2, 1.
Miss it.
Unbelievable. For the victory. It's over.
Shot clock now to 5. Bryant. Yes. And that was a little tap to Alvin Gentry.
Add insult to injury, Kobe. I mean, what a shot. I mean, you can't defend that. Are you kidding me? 2.1 seconds remaining. Denver a foul to give. Jokic trying to disrupt Rondo. He puts it in. Here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good! Anthony Davis has won it for the Lakers! James again. Oh, he hits another one. LeBron James putting together a closing quarter against the Nuggets. This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers conquer the bubble, and banner number 17 will soon hang in the rafters.